are fake news.
Last call. Last call. Last call. Last call.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Last Call. We are just a few weeks away from Election Day.
23 days. 23 days. 23 days.
23 days away from probably, I know it gets tiresome to hear, but probably the most consequential election of our lifetimes, because we literally have democracy on the ballot. And I want to just start off the show by thanking everybody who is watching us, either streaming on YouTube, Twitch, or on Twitter. Thank you guys so much. If you like what you're hearing on the show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Everybody who shares the show, everything that you do for us, we are so grateful. And if you want to help out the show, give us a like, and that'll help us kind of spread the word about the show. Today's guest is coming to us from the great state of North Dakota, which I admittedly, we're gonna have to talk about, because admittedly in the past I've had the question in my head about why is there two Dakotas?
I have an answer.
I
have an answer if you want.
Let's start with that.
So, we're talking 1885, 1886. We actually became a state in 1889. But the Republicans, after Reconstruction, wanted to make sure that they were getting 4 senators instead of 2 senators. This was how they were going to make sure that they kept control of the Senate as they were adding more Western states. And so we are actually put in place as one of the first national gerrymandered kind of concepts. So there are 2 Dakotas, specifically because we wanted 4 Republican senators and not just 2.
Okay, so do you support 1 Dakota?
I don't think that that's on the ballot this time around, so I'm probably not going to give you an answer on that. I am in favor, though, of North Dakota looking at the way that we do our electoral college allocation. It wouldn't change the electoral college from a national perspective, but what it would do is if Democrats can get 34% of the vote, we should get 1 of the 3 electoral college votes that we get. This isn't just about trying to help the potential of a Democrat having 1 of the 3. What we saw in the 2020 election is that Maine 2, which is Bangor, Maine, and Nebraska 2, which is Omaha, split away from their states. Those are the 2 states where it is not winner take all. So, right, we see every year North Carolina is in this fight because you get all 17 of the electoral college votes, or Florida's in this battle every year because you get all 23 or 24 electoral college votes. That's the way that most states do it. It's winner take all, right? California, you get all 54 of them. But the states have the ability under their own law to separate those out. I want to do it as a proportional. Here's the thing: if we gave that 1 vote as an option for Democrats to come in, national Democrats, presidential candidates going to come in, try to make sure that they're listening to the people of the state about what should occur in the presidential election, what should be the national priority. And the Republicans, in order to try to keep it, because right now they have it, we're just a flyover and they get it. We typically vote about 40%, but they don't have to work for that 3 votes. If we made them work for that 3rd one, the Republican national candidate would also be coming in to find out what it is that makes our state different than everybody else. This is a time to put our state on the map, and I want to change the electoral college in North Dakota.
But it sounds like you're just for popular vote.
That's gonna be something that's gonna require a constitutional amendment, and if that's not gonna happen next year. This could be something.
No, but I'm just saying that if states went the way you were saying, then it would basically, for the most part, be as close without an amendment to getting popular vote.
There are political scientists who have advocated that every state should do this. I'm not running for Secretary of State of every state. I'm running for only one, and I want to introduce it. Here's the thing. If we don't have some that start this, though, what we're going to see is Texas is going to go blue in the next 2 to 4 years on the presidential election, and they're going to be wishing, the Republicans are going to be wishing that they had looked at proportional allocation in the future, because we know the deck is stacked against them. We know that their policies are so unpopular with anybody that's under 50. We know the harm that they have caused to the generation of college students that are coming out of college. We know that home ownership is in trouble because of their economic policies. There will be a time whenever they're going to wish that they had gone down this path, because the block of red states that in the middle of the country are giving them the presidency, 2 out of 7 of the last elections, they have only 2 of the 7 of the last elections have legitimately been theirs, and then they've taken another 2 because the way the Electoral College works. This is going to be something that they're going to wish they had done. We should start that here to show them that something closer to a real population vote is the way that this should be set up.
That's the way to go. Yeah. Before we get too far in it, let me just go ahead and introduce you, Jeff, to the folks at home. I thought we were going to just get into there's 2 Dakotas because there's a north one and a south one, but I didn't. That was a very academic.
I was just thinking about Donna Moss in the West Wing when she got sent to the town meeting when they were advocating for one Dakota, and she's like, "I don't know. I'm from the White House. They told me to come."
Aaron Sorkin didn't do his homework that night because there's an answer.
So joining us on the show here today is Jeffrey Powell, and Jeffrey is running for Secretary of State of North Dakota, and it's one of those places I think that, just like you were saying, Jeffrey, a place where if it has the population size that's not too large, but not really that small, that we could kind of do some of these political experiments, if you will, on testing representation and proportional representation at that. And I think that exactly as you said, right now it's Republicans don't have to work for it, so they're not going to that, and that's the kind of the case for a lot of states. And I just, I would like to see us be in a position where 50 states are competitive.
Yeah. So I was watching I don't remember if it was CNN or NBC this morning. I love the Sunday morning shows, and they were going down the list of what they call competitive congressional districts, and there's something like 27 of them out of the 435 congressional seats we have. Like 27 of them are considered to be competitive. We're having all this fight, we're having all this money, we're having all this discussion over a couple of dozen congressional districts because the way that we have drawn our districts, or because of the way that our states are shaped, we so often have these districts that are safe, that a congressperson doesn't have to abide by the will of the people of the state because they know that they're safe. They know that they're going to get that party designation. One of the things I think is terrible that happened in our history is when President Clinton was in office and Newt Gingrich brought out the Contract for America. If you remember this, what was that, 94? And one of the things he specifically said is, you all should stop voting for the person that's going to do the best for your state. You should start doing what's going to be best for the national party. He was trying to bring about the change. He was trying to put the brakes on what he thought of as a liberal Clinton expansion, which is kind of a foolish concept. But he was trying to put the brakes on it. And so what he wanted to do is to make sure that they had the seats in Congress. And so he straight up said, stop voting for the person that's going to do the best for your state. Start voting for the party so that we can do some of these culture war things that are important to us as Republicans. I think that single message has so tarnished the last 25 years of our politics.
Can I elaborate on Newt Gingrich? Because it was something that I wasn't.
Big square.
Only if I get the big square? Okay. Let me elaborate on Newt Gingrich. So I decided I was going to run for Congress and, had discussions, family, friends, whatnot, and really got into the process. And one night my wife said, well, how does this work? And in my prior career, I traveled for a living, and it was like, well, obviously I have to be there, but I come home here. But let me look into it, like what really goes down. And in 1994, Newt Gingrich required all Republican House members, when he became Speaker, he shortened the work week to where they work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday's a short day where they could fly out on Thursday or else fly out early on Friday morning, get back to their districts and fundraise all weekend long and come back. And prior to 94, there was like 3 decent sized kind of communities where senators and Congress members lived.
Yep.
And they would fight at work, but they would come home and they would have barbecues and they would commingle together. Newt Gingrich literally used a guillotine and cut that off. And I'm not saying somebody should get elected in Washington State and just move to DC. That I don't agree with.
But ribs and bourbon can make things go a lot smoother.
But you look at the divisiveness in everything today, and it all has a link back to 1994. Newt Gingrich is Speaker, saying vote for party versus you, vote for this versus you, and you guys are going to go home and pound out for money for re-election. You're not going to see your family. You're not going to go do these other things. Everything you do is for money for re-election. And that's where we have this 2-year congressional election cycle. People asking Lourin, people asking myself, are you guys going to announce on November 10th? Like, are you guys going to run again? What's in your future? And it's just messed up, but it all stems back to 1994, to Newt Gingrich and his power grab / everything else of where he just wanted, this. It's
what do you say?
Royally messed up.
What do you say to
they say
those people?
4 to 5 hours a day. 4 to 5 hours a day, a member of Congress is on the phone fundraising. If they're actually working an 8-hour day, that means that half of the day is not spent on the business of the people. If they're actually spending half the day, that means that they're working a 10-hour day. And I wouldn't put a lot of money on that being the exact formula that they're following. We have way too much money in politics.
I was just about to kind of segue into that and kind of say, ask you, how do you combat the the money in politics in North Dakota? Because I feel like to a certain extent, it's just like I would think of the folks here that are like generational Republican. I'm Republicans because my parents are Republican, and not really something that's a whole lot of money behind it. Is that what you're finding in your race? Is there a lot of money in it, or how are you kind of handling that?
We just reported our finances on October 4th. I have fundraised $14,000. I am running against a guy who has fundraised $173,000. That happens to be more, in case your math.
Secretary of State needs to know how to count. Not as good as the treasurer, but still needs to know what more is.
And a good chunk of what he's taken are going to be from industries that he will be regulating if he wins. And I'm concerned that he's going to say it won't affect my judgment because my principles are already set in stone. And I'm going to say that's not in any way true, that it can't be. We have too much money in politics. I have a palm card that I've been handing out, and I should have brought one on, but one of the things I want to look at are public finance. I don't know that it would be for statewide offices, but certainly for our legislative. For our legislative races. I have been the chair, and I'm currently the vice chair of our legislative district. And we raised about $60,000 last cycle from the 3 people that were running on the ticket for the legislature. And what we're fighting over is about 150 votes. We know going in that we've got 1,600. We know going in they've got 1,600, and we're fighting for 150 votes. And we spent a year's salary for most people on fighting for 150 votes. And it's just, it's ridiculous. If we were looking at something like the Clean Campaign program that Maine has, the public financing election that Arizona State has, maybe somewhere in between the two values that they associate, I think that our politics would be cleaner. I think that our airwaves would be cleaner. I also think that we would spend less time fundraising and more time figuring out what the needs of the people of the district are. You have brought up
Lourin's coming my way a little bit on this topic, but my big thing is campaigning on, I want to reform campaign finance, but I'll take any dollar that comes at me because I am who I am, and I am going to stand on my morals, because the other side is immoral and will take any dollar that comes their way. There is nothing that bothers me more than somebody's like, oh, I don't want that person's money because it might look, no, give me the money to get elected so I can change the rules. And what you're talking about is at a state level, that you need to do that. And you do. And every state needs to do that. And then we need federal regulations on it. But right now, I mean, it's literally possible for if I had an active campaign that could accept donations, I could literally fundraise for you under that campaign by saying it's for me, then giving it to PACs that could then give it to you while that person's already maxed out their donation. They could like, there are all these weird circles in it, and that has to stop. And that's happening everywhere. But I just am of the belief of that playing by a more restrictive set of rules, like playing Candyland and saying that if I get a double purple, I only go one purple, but the other player is playing where they get a double orange and they go 2 or 3 orange, we're not going to get there. And so we have to play by the rules that are here now so that we can get there where we can change the rules.
So in my state on this ballot in November, one of the questions is related to term limits of certain offices, including our district legislature setup. And what that term limits does, in my opinion, what that term limits does are two different things. It addresses the symptom. It doesn't address the cause. It's perfectly plausible to have somebody who gets reelected 4 or 6 or 8 times because they're doing the work of the people and the people appreciate the work that they are doing. I think that taking that person off of the ballot is a mistake. But the other thing that it does is if you are artificially saying this person has to leave because they've spent their 8 years, every lobbyist in Bismarck is going to be licking their chops because they know that they're going to have much more power in writing our laws than our legislature is going to have, because they're going to be the folks that have the expertise. Again, when you have a system that is fueled by money and is dependent upon money, you're going to have people with the money who are influencing the laws in a way that the people don't get to have. We need public finance. We don't need term limits. There's always going to be an incumbency preference because you're going to know that person's name. They shouldn't be able to outspend you 15 to 1, 20 to 1. It's just, I've been saying that one of our parties has ideas and one of our parties has money. Man, I think that is, if you look at my race, the other guy has no content. The other guy can't tell you what he wants to do. It's sad that I'm having difficulty in getting my message out because I think I've got some really good ideas.
No, and Lourin and I joked about this like last year. When we first met each other and both had active campaigns, it was like, what are you going to do on the first day? And I'm like, I'm going to find the coffee machine. And like, it's one of those things that where a lot of the job is on the job training.
Yeah.
You have an idea of what it is you're running for, why you're running for it, but you've got to get there, and institutional knowledge matters.
Yep.
So timing that out and just saying, oh, you have too much institutional knowledge is not good. You're absolutely right. That's where the lobbyists absolutely win, and they'll be the ones dumping the money into the campaigns to create term limits. No, my state legislator, I would lay on swords for that woman. Absolutely, for Monica Stonier. I would run into a burning building. She's amazing, and I hope she serves there or goes on to bigger, better things in public service forever. And I would never want to see her termed out. Patty Murray, 30 years in the Senate, running for another term to go to 36, and who knows if it's going to go to 42. I will vote for her. Absolutely.
Every time her name is on the ballot.
We're gonna disagree on that one. I guess I'm open to it, but I also have people like, in my state's Dianne Feinstein.
Yes.
Great, fine, fantastic. She was a excellent representative for a while.
And if she had stopped 4 years ago, she would have had statues built for her.
Yes. You can stay too long.
Okay, so how about this? We do campaign financing reform and campaigning reform. If you aren't out knocking doors, if you're not out at the farmer's market actually campaigning, you don't get your name on the ballot.
Yeah.
Because I'm just saying, Feinstein is just running on her name.
Yeah.
People just know they mark that and they go on.
Yeah. And I just think
we're meandering.
Maybe we just need better, more funded people against her. But Jeffrey, I wanted to get into a little bit about, we talked about some of your ideas. I wanted to get a little bit about some of your ideas that you have for Secretary of State for a place like North Dakota. And if you could kind of just tell us, like, what are your top three kind of priorities when you get into office?
Well, Secretary of State in North Dakota really does 4 separate things, and you need to be ready to do all 4 of those. The easiest one to identify is the election stuff, and we're going to get back to that as we continue our conversation. The second is the Secretary of State, like in a lot of states, is the person that registers contractors and carpenters and plumbers and lawyers and real estate folks. And we have a website that I've been saying was set up for Alta Vista, and really the technology hasn't changed. If you go to the website, there's a couple of dozen things that you can do on the very front page. It's way too busy, and it really just needs to be cleaned. And that's not a hard thing to do, but it's an important thing that we do. There are other business services that are a part of the Secretary's office, and making sure that those business services work and are responsive is an important priority that I would have. The third thing is that when our legislature's in session, that's where we post all of the bills, who's voted on it, what the amendments are, what the process is. It is hard as heck to figure out who's posted a bill, where it is in the process, what my legislator at the end of the day voted on it. We can tell you where the porta potties are in state parks with a nice little grid that tells you. We can't tell you whether Crewen voted yes or no on the bill to fund the schools. We need a better system on our website to make sure that people understand who's voted for what and who's voted against what. And then the fourth thing they do is related to campaign finance stuff and tracking all of that. And what we have right now is not responsive to current time. It's really difficult to read. So I want to make sure that we are more transparent in the way the legislature behaves and in the way that we record our public finance. I want to improve our business services, but I am very interested in voting, and I want to make sure that North Dakota stays one of the easiest and one of the best places in the nation to vote. And right now we've got a pretty good system.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And the fact that you have the knowledge of the position, I think that will qualify you immensely. One of the things I think when I talk to people about running for office and trying to convince good people to run for office, because I'm of the mind that you get a good government made up of good people in office. The question of like, well, I'm not really qualified. Kind of, if you could just kind of talk to our audience a little bit about the process of the thought process that you went to say like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna do this.
Well, I'm fortunate enough that I'm a college administrator, so I deal with policy on a regular basis. I had a conversation with a student before I got on the phone with you, where I talked about having a conversation with lawyers about something, and that's a pretty normal part of my work week. I am comfortable in managing budgets. I have a pretty good job right now, and it's very well prepared me for a role like Secretary of State, where it's really about the guy that's keeping the records and who's got the file cabinet. So I think that I am well established for that. But like you, I have had that conversation with a lot of folks. We're looking for somebody to run for school board. We're looking for somebody to run for city council. And I don't know enough about it. Here's the thing. You know how to ask questions. I wouldn't be approaching you if I didn't think that you had the capacity to think about a project, to ask the questions you need to form an opinion, and recognize that you're going to have folks who you can rely upon as subject experts. But what we need is somebody who's got the capacity to be a good thinking human being who can do what's best for her community or for his community. And I think that this is where Democrats do a much better job than Republicans, because we are ready to have good government. We are not going to be dogmatic. We're going to have opportunities where we're going to recognize that the greater good means that we're going to take half a loaf instead of demanding that we shut down the government because we didn't get 100% of the whatever budget cut thing that we were asking for. We're not going to harm others in an effort to seek our dogmatic ends, but we're going to make sure that we're delivering for people. And so as I'm meeting with folks that I am interested in getting on the ballot, I often focus on their capacity to understand things that maybe are not in their realm of expertise, but still within their capacity to understand and learn.
That was always my approach. It was, if I can only help 30 people out of the 330 million in this country, but I'm not hurting anyone else, heck yeah, let's do it. Reset footing, go forward again. You know, I'd rather help 30 million than 30, but you know, seems like common sense to me. If it helps people without hurting others, why wouldn't you?
Right.
That's
right.
great.
I my answer to that is Don. Kind of
Lauren?
thought you think about. Oh, can you hear me?
You broke up really bad.
Oh,
you said
okay.
my thought about that is, and then you were gone.
My answer to that question is always Donald Trump was president. So all those folks that feel like they're not qualified or anything like that, this man was woefully not qualified for it and still became president. So
George Bush made a 1270 on his SAT, and I did too. So
so that's I say about that. So if you're thinking about running for office, absolutely get involved with it. Apparently, people in the chat like my shirt. This is Fresno Fairwear.
Okay, let's get a big screen here. All right, that's a good looking shirt.
Rock the plaid. We went to the pumpkin patch today. So, Jeffrey, I would kind of wanted to segue into a little bit about your thought on. I don't know if it's necessarily something that Secretary of State asked, but just kind of the thought on what's happening on the national stage here is front and center has been access to reproductive rights. What is kind of happening on the ground in North Dakota? Is it kind of like we saw in Kansas, where it's the presumed conservative state, but the women of North Dakota are like very much see this as a their issue, and it transcends party lines?
So I'm going to answer in at least 2 and maybe 3 different ways. I attended 6 reproductive rallies over the course of the summer, or as recently as a week ago. where we've had good turnout, particularly from younger, but certainly women of all ages, and certainly men who recognize that any infringement of freedom is an infringement of freedom. So there is a population base here that is, and I hate the phrase pro-choice because pro-choice makes it sound like it's a one-time thing, and it's not, but who do believe in reproductive freedom, bodily autonomy, the capacity of a person to make a decision without government interference. So there is certainly a voice here. This is not a 100-0 kind of setup. The second thing is this: our state legislature. Well, all right, I'm going to take one step further back. In North Dakota, and I don't know of any other state that does this, a legislative district has one senator but has 2 representatives. So when I walk into my ballot box to vote for my legislative district, I'm voting for 1 senator and I'm voting for 2 House of Representatives folks. And that's kind of a cool concept. I mean, I had never seen that in any other state where I had lived. But what frequently happens is, because I get to cast 2 votes for 2 people, we have 47 legislative districts. In 6 of those 47, we have 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, and the other 41, they go both of them go the same direction. So what we really have created is a system where we have huge duplicity of representatives in the House. It doesn't lead to diversity. It leads to the opposite of diversity. It leads to a homogen or a heteroization, which is really problematic. So North Dakota consistently votes in the mid-30s, high 30s for Democrats, but we are only 16% of the legislature. So we have this notion where I, as somebody who thinks of himself as a progressive, thinks of himself as committed to the Democratic agenda, is outshouted 2-1 unfairly. I've introduced the idea that we should have ranked choice voting, which would eliminate a good part of that bias that exists within that and would bring us closer to about a 32-33% representation in the House. So I would like to have that. But anyway, in this setup, we have this legislative set where we are not fairly represented. In 2014, the members of the unfairly slanted to the right House of Representatives put a personhood bill on the state ballot because they wanted to change the Constitution to introduce personhood. And that was voted down 67-33.
Oh, wow.
The people of this state said, no, abortion is a fundamental right and it should exist. And the legislature said, well, we don't care. And so they put a trigger law in place.
Oh, no.
And as soon as the 4 politicians that joined the Supreme Court lie to the Senate, go to the Supreme Court, you're a politician, not a judge. Those 4 politicians, as soon as they made that decision, we lost the only abortion provider in the state because of the trigger law. So we've got a bunch of people who are being denied the medical care that they deserve. We're fortunate in that we are right next door to Minnesota, and Minnesota at this point still does respect people's rights. And so there is a nearby clinic, but it is not the same as having that capability within your state. So it is my hope, it is my belief that we're going to see a bump in the polls. I'm hoping that it's grand enough to actually put some Democrats in office, because we need to turn over this ridiculous and terrible trigger law that was put in place by a legislature that does not represent the people of the state.
I have. Everybody said, oh, look at Kansas, look at Kansas, look at Kansas. And I'm like, looking at Kansas is great for red states and state level elections in red states. You can't apply that to, California, Oregon, Washington, New York, like these big blue states aren't going to say, I mean, I talk to people all the time. They're like, well, that's Texas. Oh, that's whatever. They don't understand that there could be a federal ban on it. And trying to explain it takes too many words, so they lose interest. But I think in your state, it could very well be one of those things that does drive people out this year. I really do. I think the red states it's what they wanted. They're the dog that caught the bumper. And I think that very well it could favor people that are pro-choice.
We have a number of candidates that are hoping the same thing. So it is not and I have not talked about abortion a great deal because Secretary of State is not one of those positions that regulates or legislates anything related to it. But I have attended rallies because I do believe that a politician who will take away the right to make a decision in the doctor's office will also be happy to take away the right to vote, your right to vote. And so I don't see those two things as being that separate. I think that there's a slippery slope between taking away one and taking away the next one.
Yeah, we have Prop 1 in California that's going to change our state constitution to have it be a right in the state constitution.
Yep. Does North Dakota if the governor quit, retired, I can't think of the right, step down, would you assume the governorship?
I'm third.
Third?
I'm third.
Okay.
There's a lieutenant governor who would be, so I would be the third constitutional officer.
Okay. Just curious. I mean, so therefore, I mean, it does matter what you think. If there was a massive scandal with the governor and lieutenant governor, and I'm just saying, like,
and the attorney general gave two darns about it.
But no, I'm just looking at Oregon and John Kitzhaber stepped down, and that's how Kate Brown ascended from Secretary of State to being the governor, and then she got reelected and
Cuomo
got 2-term. Mm-hmm. What?
So Cuomo.
Cuomo came from Cuomo went out, and it just I think that those views.
If she says no, you gotta go.
This is not an impersonation show. I think that being loud about it can't hurt you.
Nope. I have no qualms about. I have no qualms about letting folks know that this is what I believe. It is also not going to be something that is pertaining to this particular election for this particular candidate. The other two guys are clearly opposed to reproductive freedom. They are on record, both as saying that one of them actually says he only regrets that he's only been in the legislature for 8 years because he didn't have the chance to vote for this when it was put in place. So he's a bad choice. He's a bad choice.
Well, all right. I wonder, so now it's probably the time of the show where we kind of transition over to our power panel and kind of discuss this week's news. And Jeffrey, I hope you stay with us on this because I think that you might have some insight in a couple of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight.
Outstanding. Let's go. Check me out at powell4nd.com. I'm running for Secretary of State, and I would love all the support I could get.
There you go. There's the plug. I usually have candidates.
Hold on. Powell, POWELLFORNV.com.
Yep.
Putting that in the chat.
Outstanding.
I usually have candidates do their 30-second elevator pitch. So you beat me to it. But so this week we had possibly the last meeting of the January 6th committee in the House meet and kind of showed us more information. I say more information, but it's kind of like we already kind of knew where this was headed. And now there's a subpoena to the president. What are your thoughts on this?
No.
The disgraced ex-twice impeached former president.
There was a lot of votes, Brent. A lot of people were voting.
More people have voted for me than have voted for anybody other than that other guy that once
in the history.
Listen, so here's my take. Conservatives have three primary missions. The first is they have to figure out how they monetize their position of power. The second is they have to figure out how they protect other conservatives from the effects of being being subject to the law. And the third is they have to, from time to time, demonstrate something that causes other people pain just so that you know what position you're in. That's their three-prong agenda. That is all they believe in. How do I get rich? How do I protect people so they don't get in trouble? And how do I put a little bit of pain on people that I disagree with? That's what they do. It's about time that we're taking on step number 2 of that particular triad. This guy should have been indicted long ago. I do not know what's taking Merrick Garland so long. I understand he's careful, and I understand that he wants to have an airtight case. But the reality is that case is not going to get more airtight by waiting another 365 days. It was ready 500 days ago.
Right. And my concern is like the deeper that we get into, if we get into next year, the deeper we're into next year, he's just going to paint it as, look at the Democrats are trying to end me before I do my announcement because they know that they're going to lose in 2024 if I run. And even though we all know he's not running again, like that's just
he's going to run again.
Yeah,
he absolutely is going to run again. Yep.
No way.
Yep,
it's a grift.
But the grift shuts off if he doesn't declare.
Yep.
Trust me, if Liz Cheney announces on February 1st and Don the Con has not announced, I'm sorry. Him jumping in, no.
And here we come back to what I said in the earlier segment. Nearly none of the Republican primaries, almost all of the Republican primaries are winner take all. Most Democratic primaries are proportional. So at the end, or usually it's the top 3 vote getters get points and nobody else does. So one of the things we see through the Democratic primary is all this chaos because we allocate according to who the top 3 vote getters were, or the top 2 vote getters. But on their side of the ballot, if you win, pick a state, Kentucky, by 18 votes, you get every single one of the votes in the primary electoral pool. And so he doesn't have to beat everybody. He just has to win enough so that he gets enough points from the way that they've set up their system.
And with them piling on, they'll send Liz Cheney, I think. There's a couple others out there. But they'll vote split down to where his MAGA 35% is more than enough to carry him through, and then they're all going to have to put him back on their shoulders.
Yeah, we saw them. Go ahead, Frank. Go ahead, Lauren.
I was just saying, do you think those votes are going to stay around if a DeSantis is also in that race?
Yeah, I do. I don't think that they like his. The fact that we even have this phrase, moderate Republican or anything. I mean, every time we put an adjective on it that makes them sound better than they are, I'm bothered by it. But the fact that we have these folks that we were calling the radical Republicans versus the, reasonable Republicans. I mean, I don't think that any of them see DeSantis as anything other than just as dangerous as Donald Trump. So you're going to have somebody who has the patriotism to try to stop the country from being subject to that. But I don't know how much oomph that person or those people are going to have. What we saw in the Wisconsin Democratic legislative senator race, right, was there were 4 folks, and about 2 weeks before the primary, the other 3 said, you know what, we're going to pick Barnes, go with Mandela Barnes. It was a decision that was made by 3 candidates who probably had their own chances at winning. There weren't any of them that were completely out of the race, but they knew that what was good for the country was to figure out who they were going to unite behind. I don't know that the Republicans are going to do that fast enough to stop Don the Con if he gets on the ballot.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Dang, I was having some kind of positive moment.
You were having an out-of-body moment, Lauren.
Dang. All right. So earlier in the week, we had a debate. Finally, we had a long sought after Georgia Senate debate between Raphael Warnock, the sitting senator of Georgia, and his Republican election opponent, Herschel Walker.
Wasn't a badge. It wasn't a badge. But I tried.
Let's say someone is opening a Halloween costume, a police officer costume that is badgeless because
That was Dan Rather's.
That was Dan Rather.
Dan Rather had that one. Olivia June said walking into Costco like, and then AOC said, "What in the party city is that?" Those were my top three. Those were my top three comments. I'm like, God, I wish I was witty enough to get, like, I would have gotten a viral tweet out of this.
The man is just. First of all, let's talk about Raphael Warnock's debate performance, because there were some criticisms that I had of Raphael, and namely that he did not, he didn't take. He had an opportunity to not only take the positions that Herschel Walker is told to have to task. He could have took the whole Republican Party to task about them being obstructionists on the very things they're attacking Democrats for. Herschel Walker tried his best to paint Raphael Warnock as attached to Joe Biden's policies. Well, there's a perfect opportunity for Raphael Warnock to say, okay, if you think inflation's a problem, what was the Republican solution to that? Because they didn't vote with us in our bill to fix that problem, and didn't offer one of their own.
I think he offered 94% 6 times. That he votes with Joe Biden 94% of the time. Yeah, when we're trying to control the price of gas. Yeah, when we're trying to go after inflation. Yeah, when we're trying to fund cops. Yeah, when we're trying to keep medical prices low. Yes, 94% of the time is actually a good thing for Georgians and a good thing for Americans. He could have made a stronger argument.
Yes, I think like I was just trying to say, like, it was 96, and 96 was the number of voices in Herschel Walker's head.
Yeah, my
mistake. Thank you for correcting me.
I think Warnock didn't want to overly embarrass and come across as a bully. I think he held so much back because he didn't want people saying, you knew the guy was not on your level. And I mean, it'd be like playing chess with a chess grandmaster and them doing the 3-move checkmate on you and running around the room like I won, and people going, yeah, you could have let them make a few moves before you crushed it. And I think he just held a lot back. I really do. And I think it was intentional. And I think he was out of his element because he was holding it back. And that made it look even worse because he wasn't stabbing at it, because if he had stabbed at it, he was going to get in trouble for having stabbed at it.
You could be right.
That's my guess as to what was going on there.
Yeah, I think he did poorly also. But I did not have, granted, I did not have that kind of frame of thought that it would be just like me playing football against a 10-year-old. It's not,
Yeah, you going out and playing tackle football with the 4th graders and getting a sack and you running around going, I sacked that guy.
Talking about a sack.
It's just like, it's exactly that, because that's what he would have been pictured or characterized as had he done that.
At the same time, it's like this guy is also running to be a senator in the United States Senate. It's not just for everybody. I'm sorry that he's got 17 voices in his head. That's not my problem. What is my problem is those 17 voices are going to be representing and voting on crucial legislation.
No, they're not. No, they're not. It's just an extra Mitch McConnell. He'll vote with Mitch McConnell 100% of the time, no matter what. I'm just saying, Herschel Walker is not going there to legislate anything.
He thinks he's bigger than. That's what happens. That's what happens. The dog eventually gets hungry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Should have gone harder.
And you already gave this man. You already gave this man a badge.
What I thought happened.
You already gave this man a badge. He's eventually going to start pulling people over, right?
It's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop.
He got the
That's
My
exactly-
First Top kit from Babies R Us.
That's, yeah, you have a lot of agreement, Jeffrey. I just,
When you only
It
get
is,
one
I-
debate, when you only get one debate, don't come with kid gloves.
no, yeah, he should have did a better job. I'm wondering now, since we are in this situation, I've also read a couple things this week about the outlook on the Senate races for Democrats are a lot better than they have looked in the past, and that it could be a situation where we actually gain seats in the Senate. And I'm wondering which of these Republican candidates would you not want to see win their race? Someone like a
50 and
Herschel
0.
Walker. I mean,
I want Warnock to win. I very much want Val Demings to win. I think that Mario has made a joke out of the Senate in his lack of attendance. I want Fetterman to win because he has done the work to represent folks. I want Barnes to win, in part because Ron Johnson is just an embarrassment. Ron Johnson's one of the senators, much like Hoeven from North Dakota, who spent the 4th of July about 4 years ago in Moscow. And we don't know why they were there. They shortly after that, we had some agricultural commodity markets that changed. This was right before Trump had announced the tariff problems that were going to really create some problems for farmers. I don't know what happened, but Johnson and Hoeven together, they're problematic. I want Hoeven to lose. I really do believe in Christensen, who's the person that's running for North Dakota Senate. From North Dakota. I really like her. I know that we see these flippable 5, and I hope that all 5 go our way, but I hope that that's not where the list ends.
What do you think of Tim Ryan?
I like him. I don't understand why we're not plowing a little bit more resources his way. Guy loves the unions, and man, if you can't talk about being pro-union in Ohio, I don't know why. Right. I don't know why we're not behind him. I think every single worker in America should be in a union. I think that if you are paying, I think we should double corporate taxes. And then if your corporation has a signature from your union that says that you are a union company and unions have say in how you're managing yourself, then you can get a tax cut. But I think that we need to have more people in unions so that we have better democratic voices within our commercial sphere, not just our political sphere.
I'm with you. I'm not sure about the doubling and then having and the who signs off on whatever, because that sounds like a new way to pay somebody off to get a signature in order to whatever. But
you West Coasters think about fraud every chance you get, right?
I think Tim Ryan is an amazing candidate. I have no idea why the DNC is not just saying, "Here, take my money." Yep. We'll do anything. We'll go in debt and we'll raise it back when we hold the Senate and expand the Senate, because the donors will be there if they say, "Hey, we went $500 million backwards, and we expanded the Senate. We need you to spend $20."
I'm going to step out. It's good to see you guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey. And so Jeffrey's out.
Okay.
It's great having him on. A lot of insight. Really enjoyed a lot of what he had to say, and appreciate him coming on the show. Really, the last topic that I have for you is just talking about.
Wait! Put that back in frame. Put that cup back in frame. You're using a Merry Christmas cup already.
It's my whiskey glass.
I'm just saying. I'm a Christmas guy. I want the Christmas tree up already, and wife says no, not till Halloween. So, I see a Christmas cup and I get all excited.
Yeah, Christmas is we are November 1st.
Okay.
This Christmas time. So
we for some reason end up doing it literally on October 31st.
Nice. I would do it November 15th if I had the choice, but that's just
okay. Well, Aaron's the better person.
I won't disagree with you there. So I just really kind of wanted to have the last topic, just kind of your thoughts on our friends across the ocean there in Great Britain with Liz Truss, who's their prime minister in her 6th week, and she is already facing some vote of no confidence kind of talks, and she could be out of a job in just 6 weeks. What is going on there?
I have not kept a close eye on it. Last night, I'm like, okay, it's time for bed. And I'm obviously doom scrolling because that's what I do before I go to bed. And it's this video of where she's going into the office of Charles. And he's like, twice in 6 weeks. And he like made some snide comment after it. And I'm like, no, that can't. And I replayed it like 6 times. And then I went and I Googled like, oh no, that happened. Like literally the king is like, really, you're in my office. It sounded like the school principal. Like you're back again because of drama. Seriously, this is, and that's when I kind of looked at it a little bit, but I was like, really? Like this is, and I haven't fully looked into it, but yeah, it seems like she's having a rough go.
Yeah. Oh, dang, I lost my camera.
You did.
Let's see.
It went to video mute. There you are.
There we go. Yeah, I just, like part of the thing is like, it kind of like, also goes back to the conversations with folks here. It's like inflation is not something that is an American phenomenon right now.
OPEC.
Right? OPEC. It's something that's going on literally around the world. And so, we have different ways of dealing with it. And one thing to keep in mind that I just want to point out, because I did not hear, let's talk about Raphael Warnock, right, in the debate. One of the things he could have said was point out the fact that, a lot of the campaign, I won't say propaganda, but that's kind of how I see it now, that's going on is about gas prices. I've seen ad after ad about high gas prices. And if we just drilled for more oil, it would fix gas prices. I would have loved to hear him tackle the folks that claim to be capitalist. If we drill for more oil, that does absolutely nothing to the price of gas in America.
If we increased our output by 1 billion barrels a day, Saudi would shut theirs off by 1 billion barrels a day in order to keep the price high so that then they could start reintroducing it at the higher price. It's OPEC. It's the greed of the oil companies. It's the greed of the oil countries. But drilling every 10 feet in the U.S. until you hit, dinosaur blood is not going to fix that when it's a global commodity. And if you tell Exxon the price per barrel is, I don't know what today's price is, so I'm not going to quote it, but the price is X, but it didn't cost you anywhere near X to drill it. So sell it to Americans for X divided by 4 when they can sell it to Germany for X. No, they're going to say, wait, we're sending it there. And that's what we have now is our oil mostly gets sent away. And because people want to buy it from here, we buy oil from the Middle East and bring it here. It's kind of like driving down the freeway in the middle of the night behind a FedEx truck. You're driving south on I-5, behind a FedEx truck, and a FedEx truck passes you going north. And you're like, now couldn't those two guys swap trailers so he gets home with whatever's going south, and this guy go back home with whatever's going north? But instead, they're going to pass each other and both end up staying in their truck or in a hotel. We have tankers passing each other, bringing us oil and taking oil away. And that's a global economy, and that's fine. But OPEC is the one who sets the per barrel price, and then you have different levels at refineries and everything. I don't fully understand how we get to the per penny of a gallon, but simply we have more than capitalism at its finest going on in 10 directions. And because diesel is high, shipping the diesel is high because it burns diesel to move it around. All of these things come into play.
Right. Well, I think that'll do for wrap up for this week. Before we go into Lauren's final thoughts, Brent, do you have anything to add for this week?
No, not for this week. We're, we have some big things coming in about 10 days. So stay tuned.
All right. That's what I like to hear. As Rachel Maddow would say, watch this space. All right. So this week we had Jeffrey Powell on, running for Secretary of State in North Dakota. And that kind of spurred me in my Lauren's last call thoughts. Lauren's last thoughts for last call. And that is this, that in America, the right to vote is a fundamental freedom. And because we are the leading democracy in the world, our election system ought to be completely free, fair, and accessible. The way we conduct elections today is obsolete. We need to eliminate long lines, cut costs, and make it more convenient for eligible citizens to vote. Maintain the integrity of the voting systems and stop the rich and powerful from exercising undue influence on the process. In short, I believe that we have to guarantee that every citizen can register to vote, ensure that all citizens can cast their ballots, and make sure that we crack down on the way of campaign financing reform, because I believe it corrupts public policy. We can all do our part to make sure that candidates like Jeffrey and those like him running for Secretary of State to protect our elections are uplifted and get the funding that they need to run adequate campaigns against those who seek to destroy democracy. Because in a democracy, every citizen ought to have that right to vote. Whether it's something like I believe in a progressive system where voters are registered automatically, and we make sure that the polling places are not just set out willy-nilly far from people's houses, that anybody who is registered, you're automatically registered to vote, and you can walk into any polling place and cast that vote. You should be able to register for absentee ballot without an excuse. And people who are free and released from prison ought to not be disenfranchised because of a criminal conviction of their past. It is so important nowadays for us to do our part. And I hope that this coming election in 22 days, as Jeffrey reminded us, that everyone does their due diligence. Casting a vote is not only your duty, but it's also your responsibility. That's going to be the last call for this week. Thanks for coming on and joining us. And I hope to see you next time.